Well, welcome to It's a Sure Thing with your host, Diane Murray-Clements, the insurance podcast that takes the events of the day and examines the liability behind the headlines. And now, here's your host, Diane Murray-Clements.
Good morning, Teleana. How are you?
Good morning. I am fine.
Okay, so we did something a little different on my show today, and thanks to Teleana, I love it. So usually I do like a one-on-one, and everybody usually listens in on Zoom or wherever else they're, not Zoom, I'm sorry, on Facebook and everywhere else. So we're going to do a little different. So now we're going to do with a cast of other people on Zoom listening in. And I'm getting ready to send us over to Facebook. So we'll be live on Facebook. So whoever's on Facebook will also be able to watch and listen. And then I'm going to be sending us over to YouTube as well. For whoever doesn't have Zoom or doesn't have Facebook, they can watch on their smartphones or on it or cast it over to their TVs. Oh. So it's a lot of technology going on over here.
New right now.
It's a lot going on. I'm new to this. I love it, but I learn as I go, and I'm happy with it. So we are currently preparing to stream on Facebook, and I'm just going to check on my side. And like I told you a little earlier, behind the scenes, what's going to happen is when I edit this video, all of this pre-talk is going to be edited out. So I'll be able to send you, a nice clean link of us in the interview. So that should go over well just as soon as it's still preparing to go live. Let me see. And I don't want to start the questions until we get there. So just give it a second to finish going through. So here we go. So Teleana, I found you on Facebook and I was super interested in your organization, your nonprofit. Tell me a little bit about your nonprofit, how it got started, how you got involved in it.
Well, the seed was planted back in actually 2009, 2010 during a strike with Verizon, who was my employer at the time. And I just felt compelled because there was just nothing for my kids to partake in. None of the aftercare programs wanted to have them on because of the fact one has autism and the other one has an intellectual disability, and they were not equipped to handle children with any behavior issues, anything like that. So I was like, well, one day when I retire, this is what I'm going to do. Even though I started before I retired, but this is something that I want to do because it was a need and parents needed that. I was like, hey, general educated children have a place to go. Why not special needs children? So, but before that, there was things that were happening to me in my life that brought me to this place.
Okay.
Like I was discussing with you earlier on, my son Wallace developed a condition called the neck, which is especially when premature babies are born, they can't digest formula. So I wind up advocating for Wallace to take this certain medication. I'm just trying to make a long story short. And after addressing the head of the NICU with what I found out that this would be a good medication for Wallace, he said no. When he said no, I cursed him out on the floor of the NICU. And he looked at me because I was crying. I was hysterical. He was like, okay, Mrs. Hurst, I'll try it. Within 2 days, Wallace turned. He did a 360-degree turn because my baby was getting ready to get a colostomy. And I couldn't see a 3-pound and 15-ounce baby having surgery. So years later, a cousin of mine married a young lady who was part of that NICU department. She was the head, she was the supervisor there. So she had a baby, we were discussing things. And I said, by the way, what's the protocol for the neck? And she said, Teleana, they said a crazy lady came in with a newspaper article, cursed out everybody in the NICU. And I'm looking at her like, What? Wait, tell me that wasn't you? I said, yes, it was. She said, you know, you're famous. You are famous. They tell that story all the time.
Oh my goodness.
So I went to Google what the protocol was for the neck is called necroenterocolitis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the protocol. So the advocacy part was already in me. So then here comes 2006. This new superintendent came to town. She wanted to change. She wanted to put the kids in a nursery program.
Okay.
She needed money for another program or whatever. She would have to have a meeting with her. I just didn't sit right for me.
Mm-hmm.
So then we wind up fighting for me and the other parents just started fighting for the district to keep the multiple disabled classrooms in the district.
Wow.
Okay. Say we won.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history. Then I wind up getting involved with Children's Specialized Hospital, doing the Navigating Through the Journey workshop with them, where parents who have new diagnosis of autism, and we were just sharing our stories, and we learn from one another when we do that.
Okay.
And I wind up being a part of their parent symposiums when they were doing their workshops, new trends in autism. And the next thing you know, we're doing a documentary called Make Friends with Autism. So there were a lot of steps that happened to me before I decided that I wanted to do this advocacy thing and have an aftercare recreation center for children with special needs.
So what was the thing that happened in the public school system? Because people always say, well, our tax dollars go towards the public school. They're supposed to provide the education for our children. Where was the lack in the public school system, and why do you think it was there?
I think sometimes people don't put themselves in other people's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any empathy. You know, a lot of these parents are spinning their wheels trying to figure out what to do with my kids, how, you know, are they progressing? And at the time, under IDA law, it was the bare minimum.
So what's IED?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. IDEA is part of a federal program, I'm going to say.
Okay.
It stands for Individual Education Association, I believe, administration. And it has a law component to it. Okay. And it's supposed to protect the rights of people who have disabilities and people have disabilities.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And that law is supposed to protect these people, to make sure that they get all the things that they need. But however, the school district only has to provide the bare minimum until 2017. Now these children have to make success progress. And I think when they say, well, here's a resource for you, just take it, and this will help you and your family. And sometimes people may look at the piece of paper and just say, okay, they look at the link or whatever they're giving them, but they just can't grasp what are you really telling me? What do I really need? So the communication is not there.
So in the school system, did you find that there was a lack of assistance? So basically what you're saying is they gave you a link, they talked to whoever they spoke to, and they said, oh, we'll have this link, and this is our duty of helping. And that's where they dropped it. They just dropped the ball, gave it to the parent and said, go forth and do what you need to do.
A lot of times the child study team, which is composed of the case manager, a special education teacher, a general ed teacher, maybe a school psychologist, and the parents, okay? Because the parents are part of what we call an IEP team, which stands for Individual Education Program. Each child that has a disability or special need in the school district either has an IEP or a 504 plan, which is the 504 plan is a modification for the child to assist them so that they can learn just like other children.
So what type of modifications are included with that? Like what would a child need a modification for?
Okay, say for example, if a child is, say that they're sight impaired, okay, what a 504 plan will do is that it will enable that child to sit at the front of the classroom or to have a magnifying glass on his books and notes. Or, you know, sometimes the child, more importantly, will have, you know, eyeglasses, eyewear to assist them as well. And sometimes children need all of these components. And that would be under something like that would be under a 504 plan.
So traditionally, what was traditional in the school system, I know when I was in the public school system as a child, they would separate kids that needed special services. What are they doing now? Are they still separating children, or are they integrating them in the classrooms with other children that don't need the resources as they may need?
Okay, it depends on the disability.
Okay.
Now, if a child has ADD and ADHD, the children will more likely be in what's called an inclusion class.
Okay.
So that class have children that may have some behavior issues, but can learn and be on grade level like the rest of the children. They may need extra support. Sometimes these children are pulled out for math, for English, language arts, because they need the extra support. Children who have an IEP sometimes are pulled out for speech. I'm just going to say speech or
Right.
OT
Okay.
or physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. And they may be on grade level. But a child that has an intellectual disability, like autism, that child is put in what we call, I wouldn't say a separation class, but they're put in I'm looking for some reason the word, I don't know, all the stuff that I know.
That's okay.
I can't think of the word. That's crazy. But nonetheless, they're put into a separate situation with less students,
Okay.
less distractions, so
Okay.
that these kids can help, get on to keep on task with supports, of course, because usually there will be another aide in the classroom. Sometimes there are two.
Okay. Now, this is in a public school setting, correct?
This is in a public school setting.
And this is something that parents, if their children have autism, that they should be looking for in their public school, or is this an automatic that happens?
Usually it's an automatic thing, usually, but not necessarily so. But what happens is that there's steps that need to be followed first. When a child is not meeting the developmental milestones that they should be meeting, that's a red flag to the parent. The parent can call the county and start a program called early intervention.
So how does a young parent who may be on their first child know that their child is not up to the level that they should be according to their age? How do you know? How did you know that your children had some type of disability, or a developmental disability or learning disability?
Okay. There was a little voice inside of me saying something is not right. And most of us parents know when something is not right. We may ask other family members who may tell us, well, Mary didn't talk till she was 5, so don't worry about it. Johnny didn't walk till he was 3. So we lean on them for that information. However,
And it's funny that you say that, because I always go back to the example with my daughter. My daughter didn't start talking until she was a little over 3. She knew stuff. She knew a few words. She would point at a lot of stuff. So if she knew she wanted a cookie, she knew exactly the cabinet that the cookies were in, and she would point like up there. I knew what she meant, and she was like up there. And my cousin at the time, was he in grad school? I want to say he was in grad school or on his way to grad school, and he was a psychology major. And he did a paper using her as his test study. And everybody in the family, my mom was a nurse, so everybody in the family would say, oh, maybe something's wrong, this, that, and the other. And as a mother, and my mother was like, ain't nothing wrong. She just doesn't feel like talking. When she's ready to talk, she'll talk. And now I can't shut her up. The same thing with her walking. She didn't walk as soon as other children might have walked. She crawled, she would roll. My brother would call her high roller, because she would just roll around the floor, just keep rolling, never get up to walk, never crawl, none of that. And then one day she was at her dad's house. She just stood up and started walking, and that was it. So it's interesting that you say you have to, as a parent, follow your instincts with your children to see. So what were you going to say in regards to that?
Okay, so sometimes, just like you had the instinct there was nothing wrong at all. You had no worries about her whatsoever. It was just a time thing. When she's ready, she'll do it. Some children have that and some don't. However, there was a little voice in me tagging at me saying something is wrong. So out of my concerns, I went to, I talked to my doctor, and he was saying, well, maybe you should get in contact with the county. He gave me a number, and I did. Okay. So they wind up getting early intervention, which is a great tool. And the boys, got identified as having special needs through early intervention because the county contacted the school district.
So how old were you when they actually diagnosed them? About what age?
They were about 3.5.
Oh wow, very young, very young.
When they got the diagnosis, but when they left early intervention, they at 3, that's when they can actually attend a public school setting. And when they turned 3, they were 2. The day before 3, they were in school. Okay. Because I knew my children needed
that interaction and socialization.
Yes, with other children and everything. And we went to every party we was invited to. Because I knew this is what my children
right. need. So, and that's great that you did that, because I know some other parents and they shy away from parties. And I know another young lady, she used to say she was so sad that her child would never get invited to birthday parties and all these different events and stuff. And then she started to do the events herself and invited the other kids, and her son started to make friends like that. I think sometimes parents don't understand, don't know how to handle a situation. What do you suggest for parents in those situations that want to get their kids involved with other children? And I won't use the word normal, because all kids are normal. But they want all of their kids to be able to interact and have the loving and fun childhood that other children have. What do you tell them? How do they involve themselves?
Okay, well, this is simple. Just like that parent did. She invited other people to her child's events, whatever it is, make play dates. Right. Junior kids do it. There's nothing wrong with special needs kids doing it as well. As a matter of fact, a component of our organization is we have what's called social play dates. Okay. So usually once a month, the kids from the ages of 3 to 21, because we pick activities so that all the kids can participate. Okay. Kid does not have to have special needs to participate. They're all inclusive, and not to be afraid. There is no shame here. I mean, there shouldn't be any shame. Right. You just never know who's in the same boat as you are. So when these parents come together, instead of having a support group meeting, when these parents bring their children to our social play dates, they're able to tell their stories and share techniques and strategies with one another, which I think is wonderful. And when they bring especially when the little kids are there, then the bigger kids are there, and the bigger kids help out with the little kids. And that's the thing to see as well. Right. So the communication goes all across all levels. It doesn't matter whether that child can't talk. There is no interaction. The other kids will try to help that child assimilate and understand that they need to play with them as well. So that's a wonderful thing. So parents shouldn't be afraid to invite people over. Well, now we're in a COVID situation. So, but once this is all over, and before that, just to encourage social play dates, and encourage, it's so hard with special need parents sometimes. It's just like you said, sometimes they want to ask, it's sort of what it is that they want to ask the classmates, can Zachary and John play together, and to introduce you to the other parents that are in your child's classroom, I think is pivotal and very, it's much needed. And lots of times other parents just do not want to give that information up and don't want to have the children participate in a play date. And I don't get that, because like me, everyone's different, but I was like, we were going to parties. As soon as we heard there was a party, I would ask, can my sons come? or we would just borrow people. Sometimes it wasn't a play date. I know this family had kids. Is it okay if I bring Wallace and Xavier over to play with your son or your daughter because they need the socialization skills? And most parents would say, sure, great. Mm-hmm. I didn't drop them off. I stayed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't a drop off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and for me, it went very well. So some parents shy against it. Well, I don't know how to approach them. I don't just talk.
I think what happens, and I think it was in any situation, I know as a young parent, when I was a single mom, sometimes it's hard to, and even if it's other single moms and kids, it's hard to reach out to say, oh, hi, how are you? You know, can our kids play together and things like that. I was a Girl Scout troop leader, and I found that is an in to help my daughter socialize with other kids and other kids to socialize, because there were kids that, you know, that are shy for many different reasons. And then when they get around other kids their age, similar activities, and like you said, it can be a non-competitive activity or something that they do that engages them, that they enjoy, and it allows them to start to build a friendship, which is really good.
And that's how it starts. That's how it starts. So, you know, you just take baby steps. Sometimes, like you said, parents don't want to be involved. Or try another parent.
Right.
Keep trying until you get somebody to say yes. You know, if you have cousins or you have neighbors, if those parents in the class and your the classmates, the parents of the children in your child's classroom don't want to participate, use somebody else. And that's what I did. I used other people. If the classmates couldn't come over or couldn't play with my sons, that didn't stop me, because that was something that I know that my kids needed. That was just something that was just with me.
Right.
My sons need that. I can't just sit back and just let them just be that this certain way, because I know that once they started socializing, the whole window is going to open up for them and opportunities in order to learn about relationships, even understanding the role of play. How do you actually play with a child in school when they're 3 years old, and then in fourth and then in kindergarten? Is very important. Most teachers look and see how a child plays. That tells a whole lot about that child. Are they trying to participate with the child? Is your child standing next to the child that may be a general educated kid, or maybe a special? Are they standing next to each other? Or are they making any kind of eye contact? Those are little steps into building socialization skills. And it's very, very important early on that these children understand how to play with one another and understand actually the rules and roles of play.
So what's the name of your nonprofit for people who are just tuning in on Facebook and everywhere else? What's the name, and how do they find you? And what do you offer? What does your nonprofit organization offer?
Okay, the organization is called WallynZavy's Autistic Kids Can Do. My twin boys, one name is Wallace. The other name is Xavier, but their nicknames are Wally and Zavy. Autistic kids can do, because I see a lot of these kids can do many things as long as we give them the tools that they can use, and they can, you know, they wind up making significant progress. The organization, our services are, I'm thinking about the question that you asked. You can reach me at WallynZavy.org. That's WALLYN, Z like in zebra, A, V like in Victor, YS.org. WallynZavy's Autistic Kids Can Do, of course, is a nonprofit organization. We support families who have children affected by autism or have special needs between the ages of 3 to 21. The services we provide are advocacy. We do social play dates. We also have seminars, workshops. Now we have webinars because of remote, everything is done virtually and remotely. And we also have a community support initiative as well.
Nice. Now I'm looking at the feed from Facebook, and my daughter was on earlier and she was helping us with the Zoom and stuff. She is, and I don't know if I told you, she's a special education dean at a charter school in Brooklyn.
Love it.
And she was just put in the feed that a child diagnosed with autism does not guarantee that their child needs to be in a smaller class size. The goals of the academic programs on the IEP is to place the student in the least restrictive environment. Students with autism can thrive in traditional general education classrooms or ICT settings. It really depends on the child's functioning level. She also says that play and socialization skills are so important, like taking turns, problem solving skills, stuff like that, which is really good. So when a parent has now had the diagnosis from their doctor, they are putting their child in the public school setting, education. What are the things that they need to stay on top of? Because you don't want to just drop your kid off and go away. How involved and what should they be involved in? And what are the questions they should be talking to their teacher and the principal about their child?
Well, definitely read their child's IEP. Okay. And if they have questions about any evaluations, to ask the person who did the evaluation questions. They need to read the IEP to understand what their child's goals and objectives are. And also, it's a time limit that they should adjust themselves. Like most IEPs are done on an annual basis.
Okay.
IEPs can be done, you can have an IEP meeting at any given time. What the parent needs to do is to make communication with the teacher or any administrative staff like the principal, if that needs to be done, and to see if their child is making any progress.
Mm-hmm.
If the child is not making any progress, okay, then that's letting them maybe the setting in the public school setting is not correct for this child.
Okay.
A lot of public schools really don't want the kids sometimes going out of school district.
They frown upon it.
Unfortunately, the rationale is there, then the child needs to go where the child can make significant progress. Now,
so are there places or other school settings where a child can go outside of the traditional public school setting and not have to go to a private school and pay out of pocket, that they can get an education?
Well, what happens is that this public school, once a child goes out of the school district, that home district picks up the tab for that child to go to the special needs school.
Okay.
If parents want to go a place that, well, you need the school district to say, okay.
How hard is that?
It can be very tough. It can be very hard. Okay, the rationale is there. The child needs to go out in order to get, to have to progress. I mean, I'm not frowning upon the public school settings as far, because some of the children that I found that this public school setting is okay, and they may have autism or they may have a special need, and they're learning, they're thriving and doing fine. However, we know that some kids, that's not the case.
Okay.
Even though they're put in the public school setting, that does not necessarily mean that that's the setting that they should be in.
Okay.
So if the kid needs to go into a special needs setting, into a special needs school, which a lot of them, sometimes they're not all private. Some of them are public.
Okay.
And they have a relationship with the home school district. And those children will go over there. But the thing about it is that there's a lot of strategies that the special needs school can put in place. There's more programs, there's more resources for them. They stay in the, not saying all kids, but if they do stay in a public school setting, they're limited to the amount of resources and strategies, because especially in an inclusion class, it's only because I know the difference between a general ed classroom, how it's ran, and a special need classroom,
Tell me, what's the difference between the two?
Oh, it's a stark difference. I mean, say for example, we'll start with pre-K, because that's when a lot of children are learning, language is developing, and a child that has, we'll say, I wouldn't say Asperger's, but a child that has autism, but has good language skills, can talk, communicate, tells what his needs and wants are, can do very well in a public school setting. A child who can't tell his needs and wants and have behavior issues and have meltdowns, disrupting the class because You can't, it's very, very hard to run a classroom when you have 2 and 3 children melting down in the middle of a lesson, or being non-compliant, or having any other issue.
Okay.
The job of the teacher is to still continue to teach the children, even though there's meltdowns and everything else going on, just to continue to address the other children who can stay on task.
Okay.
That's the difference. Even so, most of the kids in a public school setting that are 3 years old learn the rules and things to follow. And like I said, they do very, very well, whether they have an issue or not, or any type of IEP. Sometimes they don't have an IEP until they get that diagnosis, and then they get an IEP, but they may be functioning well. It's a stark difference, because if you have 2 or 3 kids melting down in the middle of the floor, and you got to make sure they don't hurt themselves. So that's why you need the extra teachers or other aides, because, you know, you don't want them to hurt themselves. And other kids are going to look, you know, they can't help it. You know, they're children. They are going to look. So now everything is shut down, because now everyone's eyes on the 2 that are just having a meltdown. And then hopefully there's another aide in the classroom that can just gather the other children to just ignore what's going on. And sometimes as time goes on, those children actually learn how to just look and just
and keep it moving. Some kids are just like, okay, he's having a meltdown, but I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Get used to it.
Now, you know, you said something about in regards to advancing and the children learning. I recall my daughter went to 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 different elementary schools, because I felt that once she got to a point and she plateaued and they couldn't educate her and motivate her anymore, I said, it's time to go. It's time for me to move you on to the next
Good
school.
for you.
And that's what I did. And for that, and I know every parent can't do that, because she was in private school from 3 years old until she graduated out of high school. But I wanted to make sure that she was getting the best education that she could get wherever or whatever school she was in. So my thought was, if they can't do it, then there's somebody else that I know that's able to do it for them. So how does a parent that is a parent of a child who has autism determine when a school can't do enough for their child, and their child is possibly looking like they're doing better, but they're stagnant because of the school, not because of their learning ability?
Well, that's when the parent needs to definitely talk to the administrators of that school. You need to talk to the child study team and talk to your case manager.
Okay.
It's like for anything. It's a child meeting the goals and objectives on the IEP for once. Or do you have good communication with the staff? All those things play a factor. If your child is not progressing, and like you said, plateaued, and you see the child wanting to be challenged more, and there needs to be challenged more, what can we do to make sure the child stays challenged? If that's how the child is, and that's, you know, part of the drive that the child has. If they can't, then sometimes parents have to look elsewhere into another school. You know, check out the programs and see if you're able to do that.
Okay. So how is the challenge now with COVID and children who have any type of learning disabilities? How is that working for them at home? And how is it working for the parents? Because some of the parents are still working from home, and now they have to assist their kids with learning as well.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a lot of challenges. Some parents are like, put my hands up. I can't deal with this. Let him run around, let her to run around, let them do what they need to do. And hopefully, it's very hard. It all depends on the behaviors. Now, a lot of parents don't know exactly what goes on in the classroom. I can just tell you that. They don't know because they're not there. All right. So even in a regular classroom, you may have 1 or 2 children that always got to do something, got to act out, and it disrupts the whole classroom. So the teacher, even a general ed classroom, got to regroup. So about maybe 45 minutes to an hour of each class time is spent sometimes, not all the time, sometimes addressing the issues that a kid may have.
Wow.
So It all depends. I'm trying to reflect back from rephrase the question. Say the question to me one more time, because I got so much in this head.
So during COVID, how were parents managing now with their children?
Some parents, like I said, are throwing their hands up because they didn't know that their sons or their daughters were experiencing or doing these behaviors. Mm-hmm. So it's a wake-up call that they're dealing with that child behaviors.
That's interesting, because I was a child that was very precocious, and I was always doing things in elementary school. And my mother would say, I know you don't act like that at school. I know you don't. And and in my mind, I was a completely different person. I was like a wild child at school. When I came home, I was calm. And my parents would come to the parent-teacher meetings, and the teacher would say stuff, and my mother would say, "Not my child." She said, "That's not possible. My daughter
that happened to me. That happened to me.
She doesn't do that." But I felt like I was getting out of prison. So as soon as I got to school, I was loose. I was loose. So
this is the challenges. Parents, see, home is a refuge for most children.
Okay.
Children have two different personalities, just like you just said. One at home and one at school. School, they just let it all hang out. But so you got children, just let it all hang out. So you got children here that home is their refuge. This is where I play my games, I chill, I eat, I do whatever my parents allow me to do.
Right.
And then they recognize their home. So they don't want to do schoolwork. They don't want to sit at a computer.
Gotcha.
All of this stuff is being learned. And sometimes the parents can't get the child to attend to a computer, to even learn to address. Wow. I mean, and some of our children are regressing because when the COVID first began, a lot of schools, some of the special needs schools, I'm going to say no names, but they didn't have time. I'm going to say they didn't have time to get the equipment out to the kids that really needed it. So some children that needed a weighted vest didn't get their weighted vest.
So what is a weighted vest? Because I've heard that term before. What does it do for a child? How does it help them?
Okay, a weighted vest is a vest that has weights in it. And a child that has sensory issues, especially a child that's always seems to be in motion, that weighted vest keeps them centered. So they'll know this is where I am in time and place. I'm centered, I'm here. Gotcha. It actually is a soothing thing for them. But it also helps them know where they are in time and space because they have sensory issues. Okay. So sometimes kids need the earphones to cancel out noise. If that equipment wasn't sent home, guess what? You got the start of a regression. Because
so I have a question with that. So you're talking about the weighted vest, you're talking about headphones and things that they're using in the school system. You're talking about the parents are supposed to be working with the social workers and the counselors and stuff. Why wouldn't the counselors and social workers make sure that everything that's in school, they have at home, regardless of COVID, to make sure that they're still moving forward? To me, that seems to make sense. I don't know.
Well, it does make sense. But however, they're human beings too. So everything is not necessarily, some of them didn't have a checklist. Like, did you make sure Mary had her sets? And then there's certain guidelines. Whose equipment is it? Does it belong to the school district, the home school district, or does it belong to the special needs school? All I know is that the child had a rate. The concern for me is that no matter whose it is, the child needed the weighted vest to go home with them so that the parent can also learn, but there's certain things with the weighted vest because it's an OT tool.
Okay. Occupational. Gotcha.
So parents may not be trained to effectively to know how to even put that on. So
now we're talking about parents that have a child that they have to with a disability that are not getting proper training as well. So because you would think that government would meet in between where the school is failing and where the parents don't understand they're supposed to be that middle person to bring them together to make sure everybody's on the same page. Why is that not happening? Because this autism is and developmental issues have not just happened. This has been going on for many years. Why hasn't the school superintendent or somebody stepped in and said, there has to be a meeting of the minds and we're missing something in the middle? And I think when you said before, COVID is making all of these things come out of what has been lacking in the school system.
I think just owning up to it, responsibility. That's who wants to be responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I see. You know, who's going to take ownership of it?
Right.
You know, it belongs to the school district. Oh, no, it belongs to the school. No, it belongs to the special needs school. Oh, no, it belongs to. So you know, there has to be some type of responsibility thing of accept the responsibility, because some of these people, unfortunately, may know of somebody that has a special need kid,
mm-hmm.
but they're not living with that special need kid. They don't know the challenges every day that these parents are going through. They're not there, or they turn a blind eye and say, it's not my responsibility.
Right. And then everybody's thinking it's somebody else's responsibility, and they're relying on the other person to fill in the gap, and they're not really communicating in the way that they should be communicating.
And that's all. And then the thing about it, you know, even just down to a weighted vest.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's an OT tool,
mm-hmm.
then the parents have to learn how to administer, or have the OT person come into the home and train the parent. Just, you know, I understand the parent, it's not their job. They don't have the credentials to be an occupational therapist. But right now, we're in a virtual situation here.
Yeah.
Parents need to understand what they need to do to effectively help their child while they're here in home with them. And then so that when they go back to school, then hopefully it's a smooth transition, and the parents have a little bit more understanding exactly what the jobs of these other professional people have on and what they bring to their child's into their child's life and their child's progress.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I've just.
So as your children are getting older and they're getting to the age where they're going to have some more independence, what does adulthood look like for a parent with a child with autism?
You know, that's a good question. When the children age out, when they become, well, I tell all parents, don't emancipate your child at 18 years old. If there's a school program, they can stay in school till 21, take advantage of it.
Okay.
That'll give your child more time to get more skills and life skills, and because a lot of them have a lot of life skill programs built into them.
Mm-hmm.
What they can do, because there's not too much out there, they can connect with DVR. They can connect with all these other.
DVR? What's DVR? All these acronyms.
I'm sorry. Okay. DVR stands for Division of Vocational Recreation. So these are agencies that are supposed to help the children learn job skills, you know, but I'm not blaming anybody for anything. You also have SPAN. SPAN can actually help them out as well. SPAN is Special Parent Advisory Network.
Okay.
So there's agencies there to help assist with that, but it's not all in all.
Gotcha.
Parents need.
So you suggest when a parent first gets the first inkling that something is not the way they think it should be, they should contact their doctor, their pediatrician, and they should be doing it within those 2 to 3 year age time period before they hit preschool.
Yes.
They should be in constant contact with the teachers and the counselors to make sure that the IEPs are addressed, because IEPs can change, correct? They don't necessarily stay the same. So they should be in constant contact for every year when they have their updated IEP, constant contact with their teachers. And when I say constant contact, let me tell you something. I used to tell my daughter, I shouldn't have to come up to that school unless there's a problem. unless you bleeding out or something is happening, I should not have to come there. But I stayed in constant contact with teachers. I would email, I would call, I would text on a regular basis. Now, she doesn't know this and she's hearing this for the first time, but that's what I would do. And that's why I never was surprised by her grades. I was never surprised at her actions at the school, because I stayed in contact to make sure that they knew who I was, especially. And I think that's important in an administration, that they know the parent and not just, oh, that's her mom, but they know my name, they know how to reach me. And I would randomly pop up. So they can't prepare for me, but they know I'm there.
That's
and
excellent.
I'm available. Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. And a lot of parents need to let, there's stipulations with public schools. Well, you have to let the teacher know when you're coming. You just can't pop up,
Right.
For a lot of parents, and a lot of parents are working. So
right, absolutely. And I was working too.
We all have issues, personal issues, just,
life. We got life.
Life gets in the way sometimes.
Absolutely.
And, your car not working and you can't get to work.
Mm-hmm.
You just out of the loop. Like, I gotta get this car fixed. I'm gonna get this money, get the car fixed. You think I gotta.
Or you just having a bad day and you melting down as a parent. So
something life-changing happens. A parent died.
Mm-hmm.
A husband or wife dies, and then that whole thing, and then you got a special needs child that needs your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, now you got to know how to do both. It's like a juggling act,
Absolutely.
My husband just died, and now I'm left with 3 or 4 kids, 2 of them with special needs.
Right.
And that, so parents have, and now I'm a single parent now. I gotta work now. So it's a lot of factors that come in, but parents have to, unfortunately, we as women, and let's say just women,
Black women.
Have to we do juggling act.
That's right. And we're used to it, but that's also why it's important to create that village for us and for our children, so that our kids have the socialization skills, so we know who the parents and the teachers are. We know, and it's literally everybody is taking care of each other, because where one parent can't do something, maybe another parent can assist. Where one parent is working away from home, maybe the kids can stay with this parent. I recall summers when my daughter would stay at my girlfriend's house for the summer, because I was working and she had somebody that was home that could watch the kids. It made it easier, so you have to create these villages, whether it's your church family or your relatives or your school family. You kind of blend them all together to help you, get through. So before we close out, just remind people how they can get in touch with you, who can join your program, and are you doing stuff throughout the year? Even now during COVID, is this something for the kids to get involved in? Okay, sure. Like I said before, they can reach me through our website, which is WallynZavy.org, or you can email me. It's WallynZavy@gmail. I should have put this in the chat. That's all right. Somebody else put the thing in, and I'm putting it on Facebook for you. Okay. All right. Or they can call my office. My number is 908-753-7333. My office is located at 525 East Front Street in Plainfield, New Jersey. Okay. Room 103. And we got a social play date that's coming on the 26th. It's bowling. There's a social play date, bowling activity at Bowlmar, which is in Greenbrook. It's going to be at 6 o'clock, because that's when the rates are cheaper. So it's an after 6 bowling social play date. Okay. I don't have a flyer in front of me, but the bowling game per game is $3.59. The the shoe rental is $6. So for under about $11, your kids can bowl and have a good time and be with other kids. And they have a gaming room as well, an arcade. And the kids just, you look on our Facebook page, you will see the kids having a great time this summer.
Even so, during the pandemic, at a couple of our social play dates, because that's what we do during the summer, we have consecutive every week, maybe for 5 to 6 weeks, we have bowling, and the kids bowl and they have a great time. And it's just wonderful. They develop relationships and friendships. And it's just a good thing to see. And a lot of the general educated kids come and join us as well. So all of these events are inclusive. You don't even have to be a client of mine. You're all welcome to join in and meet our parents and meet our kids and our families.
And start building a new village for yourself.
Building a new village, because we all need help. But I want to say, what you were saying, you need people, the school family. Thank goodness for the Bragg family. That family, because we didn't have anyone to watch our kids, they helped me with my children.
That's wonderful.
And I can't thank them enough for what they've done. Miss Bragg was an aide in my son's classroom. As soon as she took one look at Xavier, she
fell in love.
Fell in love with it. That's her baby. And Wally,
I tell you, that's great.
So
That's definitely.
So I had that family because I couldn't find an aftercare center for my kids. I had that family. So you are so right. There's supports and helps that can come from anyone. I mean, sure, and sometimes we can be like, I don't know about that family, I don't know.
Right.
Some people, have that red flag, but sometimes there's another person, there's somebody else that you'll be able to trust. But I said, God, I gotta be able to trust somebody.
That's
Please.
right.
I prayed about it. Ms. Bragg said, she said, me and my children, me and my girls can watch your boys. I trust and I prayed on it.
That's a wonderful thing. I tell people all the time, my church family was a big help for me. I can't probably name one person in church who hasn't babysat my child. Whether it was during the summer break, or when I was in school, or when I was working late and I was working 3 or 4 jobs. Trust me, just about everybody babysat my child at church. And it was definitely a blessing. Yeah,
that was good that you had those supports. And a lot of people don't understand how to care for a child that has special needs, but be around a child, and go around a child. If you think I want Mary to babysit my kids, and introduce Mary to your child, and introduce Mary to some of the quirkiness or the things that the child does, so she
familiar.
She knows and familiar, because a lot of parents need a break. They need respite.
They do.
Break. So if you're a family member out there listening, and one of your family members has a child with a disability, you can, sometimes it's parent is okay, whatever, but if you see that parent about to break down or whatever, see what you can do to help them. Even if it's for an hour or two, you can go shopping, get her nails done or whatever. Just help them out. Absolutely.
Or they do like I used to do, sit in the car and eat my McDonald's in peace and quiet. And sit in the driveway. And my daughter would say, why are you always sitting in the car? I'm like, no reason.
That was your respite.
That was my respite before I got myself ready to come inside to deal with her. Oh, it's been great, Teleana. Thank you so much for sharing your organization with me. And everybody out there who's listening, I'm going to be reposting this later on today onto YouTube, so everybody be able to get to the link. And then this way, if you don't have Facebook, if they don't have access to Zoom, they'll be able to watch the replay. And I'm going to also post it up on my website for my business, Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency. Make sure you like and share this with everybody. This is a wealth of information. Teleana is right here in Plainfield, New Jersey, has a great organization that is open for children. Give me the ages one more time.
From 3 to 21. And even some of our kids are over 21. Okay. And it's okay. They come to the social play dates. They have a good time. It's all good. I'm here to help all parents. I'm here. Just contact me. That's all. That's the first step. Just call.
That is the first step.
Help, I will.
Thank you. So I appreciate you. You have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your snowy day.
And thanks for having us and introducing WallynZavy's Autistic Kids Can Do to the Facebook world.
Absolutely.
and on.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
out and beyond. I feel like
Out
what
and
was that
beyond,
what was that
because
cartoon? A Buzz Lightyear.
You're taking us back, girl.
Don't tell nobody. All right, take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, bye guys, and thanks for joining.
You've been listening to It's a Sure Thing, sponsored by DLM Insurance, with your host, Diane Murray-Clements. Join us again when we take a look at the role insurance plays in today's hot topics, right here on It's a Sure Thing. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Instagram.